Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining us. This is a Instagram Live. We're going to try it out. This is the time to try new things. And this is Tyler Chisolm. He's the CEO of
Hey everyone.
Marketing. And yeah, I've gotten to know Tyler a bit over the last year or so. He's obsessed with business, and we have a lot of conversations. I love picking his brain because he's very on that like customer centricity train. And so I wanted to talk to him a little bit about that and share it with anybody else that's interested, which is a lot of our small business clients and
Awesome.
and the community in Calgary that yeah, is all just wondering what's going on right now. How are we going to come out of this? What's life going to look like
Yes,
when
I'll start off by saying I definitely have no magic answers or no secret like here's how it's all going to work out. I think it's a good conversation to have because I think we're all. It's hard to imagine a future that's never happened before. I've heard that quoted a few times, and I think we're all kind of, whether it's as
mm-hmm.
private citizens or business owners, I think we're right in the heart of that right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we should start by saying we got sponsored for this on tap, we're calling this, and it's
Yes,
going to be like
yes,
the
very
point is you have a yeah, we have a beer
delicious. We
that
do.
from a local brewery, and we just have a conversation and talk business. So cheers, and thank you, Citizen. I'm
Cheers.
drinking the session ale. Cheers.
I'm drinking the Northwest Pale Ale, batch number 2, which I quite like. It's flavorful. It's still light and easy to drink, but it's got some real flavor to it. But it's smooth. Like after the third sip, it really settles in. I see where
Yeah.
you could, this you could get carried away. Not that you should, or you would, but you could.
Yeah, I always drink this one golfing because it's 4.5%. It's light, but it's still got some good flavor. It's
This
made for
this one
having
is this one
several.
is 5.5, so I will get ahead of you here as we endeavor
Yeah.
to pass through the evening.
Yeah. Well, we'll only be like 30, 40 minutes, so hopefully we aren't leaving here 2 tips.
No, I will.
But
We're both at home though. That's the bonus, right? Right. These days, you don't have anywhere to go. I don't have to drive
yeah,
afterwards. I just have to walk up the stairs. I think I'll be okay.
yeah, that's true. Okay, well, a little bit more about Tyler. He also runs 2 podcasts. One called They Just Get It, and the other one is called Collisions YYC. Can you tell us a little bit about your 2 podcasts and kind of what
Absolutely.
keeps you busy these days?
I started They Just Get It about 2 years ago. I was a big podcast listener, and I'll be honest, and maybe this is something that is also relevant to your small business owners. I was struggling to find what content or what platform worked for me. I'd write some articles. Yeah, they were okay. It was a real struggle. I wasn't like writing wasn't my favorite thing to do. I didn't gravitate to it. It was a real fight. And I said, you know what? And I was very lucky. I had a friend who had a bunch of podcast gear, and he said, hey, why don't you try podcasts? Like I'll give you the gear. I'll help you with sound editing. So the barriers dropped really quickly. And a
Yeah.
couple of things. One, you're never wrong to elevate other people and tell their stories. So, the world didn't need to hear what I had to say, even though you're
Mm-hmm.
gracing me by inviting me on your show tonight. I decided to tell other people's stories. And it was a time 2 years ago when, be honest, we were 3 years into the oil structural change in Alberta. There was a lot of negative going on in the media. The world could use some positive stories. And I knew a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, non-for-profits, people's story that needed to be told. So that's how They Just Get It
Yeah.
came to be. And then through that, I met a ton of people. And one of them was a very inspirational guest. His name was Kevin Crow, episode 10 of They Just Get It. If you haven't listened to it, please go check it out. I'm a huge fan of this
Mm-hmm.
guy. He's such an inspiring individual. He then comes to me and says, hey, we need to start another podcast focusing on business transformation and economically what's happening in the city. And he felt there was a lot of conversations that were being had that not everybody was hearing. They weren't getting into mainstream media. They were in little pockets.
Mm-hmm.
So we started that one, and we just launched that last September, and it kind of like quote unquote took off. I don't know how you define what's taking off, but we went from having
Mm-hmm.
no listeners to 1,000 downloads a month, like almost like within 6 or 8 weeks. Great guests. I think it proved that there was a dialogue that the city was looking to hear, and people needed to know what else was going on than maybe just the negative that we're hearing in the media. So those are the 2 podcasts. One's very much human interest. The second one has a deep focus on economic transformation with a very big focus on Calgary.
Well, good. Yeah, if you just pay attention to the national news, it can seem pretty rough here in Calgary. Like some of my friends that have moved to other parts of the world, they look back on Calgary and like, does anybody have jobs there? Like they think it's like dead here, but that's not really the case. There's lots of interesting things happening, lots of really smart entrepreneurial people that are trying new things, and I think you're just in a very like having 3 to 5 in-depth conversations a week with very smart business leaders in the city. I think you learn a lot. Like I'm sure you've gained a lot of perspective.
It's a mini MBA. I always joke, I would do it anyways, even if nobody listened, because I get the privilege or the honor of having those amazing conversations. Like I feel like I'm getting to peek behind the curtain all the time. It's great. I really, really selfishly enjoy it, and the audience seems to enjoy it as well. And with COVID, it's great. Everybody's available. Everyone has time. Everyone's at home to look at the silver lining. So I've been doing a lot over the last 7 or 8 weeks. It's been great for content.
Yeah. Good. And we tried to do this at 8 p.m. because there's a lot of parents out there that put the kids down and have a beer and just sit back, and it's nothing. We're not going to get into too much heavy. Like we've done some webinars the last month how long has it been? 2 months, that have just been very information focused, a lot of like COVID support, but this will be a nice, relaxing, like interesting shooting the shit sort of session over some beers.
Good old fashioned chat. This is my first Instagram live, to be honest. I haven't done it before. Seems pretty straightforward. Seems like the barrier to entry is pretty low. Have you done one of these before, Matt?
No, first time. So we will so far so good.
I'm your first. All right, I like that. Okay, I'll take it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm honored. Thanks for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. Okay. And I don't know if anybody has comments on there. I'll try to catch them, but they flip by pretty quickly.
Okay. I'll keep my eye on the corner of the screen as well.
Okay. Okay, good. So yeah, what's Clear Motive up to these days, and what's kind of changed in your guys' business and your industry, and what's kind of different now?
Oh wow, I'll be careful with that one. I think we can blow the whole 30 minutes just talking about our industry and what's going on. We're a full service marketing agency with offices. I say quote unquote offices. We have people, primarily full-time employees, based in 2 cities, in Toronto and Calgary. We've been diversified in these 2 markets for quite a few years, which has been a real advantage for us, being in Alberta and some of the challenges. We're a full service agency. We have a heavy focus on customers in highly competitive segments that need hardworking creative. It needs to be fast, it needs to be efficient, and it needs to drive results. And that's an area that we've focused I'd say even the last 2 or 3 years, we've really leaned in on that. And the last 9 weeks have been a real challenge for us. Our industry is going through constant change, from in-housing being very popular and larger companies bringing creative teams in-house and then going out for very specialized services, to the move around the gig economy, which is something we embrace. You know, we have right now, with the downturn, we're around 25 full-time staff and probably about the same amount of contractors or like team members that don't work for us full-time. We still, a lot of these are long-term relationships we've had of like, they're absolutely part of the team. They just don't, they're not on payroll. You know, I think one of your questions was around going to be like, what's the future? We are embracing that. I think it is the time where you're going to see more of that. Technology has dropped the barrier to where people can work from. Like our digital marketing agency is in the UK. They're an hour north of London, and they do fantastic work for us. They do have someone on the ground here, but the bulk of the work is done overseas. And we just found they were one of the, not that there wasn't other people, we just connected with them. They're culturally at work. Their service offering was great. Their skills level was very high. They brought a global perspective that we weren't necessarily getting in Canada. Not that it's not here, but we found them. So as far flung as the UK to Vancouver, Seattle, to people in Calgary that we work with. So that's something that we embrace, to be as client specific as we can, to make sure we always have the right resources for the work that our clients need, versus trying to be the jack of all trades in our industry, which is, it's very challenging unless you're a very large agency.
Yeah, so I guess the advantage of hiring or having these freelancers kind of on hand is you can have somebody that's very specialized that you might need just on one project, but you can kind of tap into that and scale up and down as you need.
Yes, absolutely. We're very much an expert-driven culture, so we look for people that have those areas of expertise. The challenge is, with an agency like ours, you don't always need that person for quote unquote 40 hours a week. You need them to provide value the whole time. That's another conversation. How do you look at it from a value proposition? Not just like, oh, I need you for 4 hours. Well, no, I need you to create this value. And I think that that's something that's being even more, our industry is classically looked at as a service-based industry, and there's a lot of companies that come at that a different way, but it really is about providing the most value to the client, and having contractors and resources and freelancers really allows us to do that while still having a core team that really understands the needs. You know, our larger clients, they it's a requirement that we know what they're going to need before they need it. It's hard to do that as a team of freelancers, but with a core group, and then you bring in the freelancers to coordinate that and to make it all happen. It works very, very well for us, and an area that we're definitely leaning in on as this distributed work and work from home model takes hold, I think, from a client side as well as on service vendor side.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, just keeping on top and knowing what your client needs and the challenges that they're going through. Like over the last so many years, you can do research, surveys, talk to people, and you had a pretty good idea, like get a pretty good idea about what challenges your client's going through. But now, like in the last 2 months, everything's moving so quickly. How do you connect with your customer and like really tap into their challenges and fears and I guess needs right now? Like these days?
I'm going to say something really unsexy and really untech and really uncool. We pick up the phone and we have meetings and we talk to them. And I have to say, in the first 2 weeks of the crisis back in March, end of March, we picked up the phone, and I can't tell you how many clients were like, you know what, thank you so much for calling. Even clients that we weren't really active with, it was like, hey, I'm just calling to let you know we're still around. If you need us, we're here. Hey, you know what? Thanks for calling. I don't even know what I need, but I might need just to talk it through with you. So in our world, customer centricity, we had clients that we'd worked with for a long time. So we were very much went into a triage mode as they were diagnosing how they were going to respond to it. And honestly, our mode of operation was to be as client centric as possible, almost to the point of like, call me whenever. If you have a question at 7 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock in the morning, it doesn't matter. Give us a call and we'll take what we know, do our best to like assess the situation that it was so fluid that we were all, working with at the time. But it was getting as close to them as we could so they knew what they were actually, we were in their corner when they were kind of, I don't want to say panicking, but when they didn't know the answers either. And that worked really well for us, as old school as that answer is.
And what about vendors? Like, has any of your key like suppliers kind of shut down, or have they gone MIA, or have you worked with?
We haven't had the experience. All of our partners that we reached out to also right away, because that's key for us. We didn't have. I know that has been an experience for some people because some companies were hit more severely. A lot of the work it's funny if I think back and unpack the question. A lot of what work we've done over the last 7 or 8 weeks has been done by our internal teams because the speed requirement was so high and the fluidity of changes, and like a client would give us direction, but then the board would meet on their end, and then the next day we'd get new direction. So we were very streamlined in terms of our vendor partners because just the speed was so. Our industry is fast anyways, but it was ferocious in terms of like turning things around. Like a briefing at 3 o'clock one afternoon is a delivery of full creative concept and idea for campaign by 3 o'clock the next afternoon. So a lot of that, our team, and I will give our team a huge props if any of them happen to be listening, they put on a lot of hats and they did everything they could to support. Like we just do whatever it takes was the mindset at Clearmotive for the last 9 weeks. It often is, but I would say exceptionally so for the last 8 weeks.
Yeah, well, small businesses. I was talking to my painter. He's painting our Bridgeland place, and he runs Mountain View Painting, and he's had to, he doubled down on his advertising during all this because he saw all his competitors kind of pulling back, and he's had the busiest spring. But that got me thinking, like, people are driving less, so they're listening to the radio less. They're driving by billboards less. There's no events. Event sponsorship is a big one. So are a lot of your clients really going full on digital marketing, or
majority of our clients, I would say 65 to 80% of their spends are typically digital already. So clients very quickly get addicted to, and I say that in a very positive way, to the metrics, the transparency, the attribution modeling. This ad, hey, we put a photo, I'm thinking of one of our home builder clients, we put a photo of a kitchen, and this was the attribution of the leads we got, but we put a rendering and it actually got this attribution. Let's do more of that. Very challenging to do in a billboard type environment. And I am a believer in all forms of marketing can be relevant if it's relevant to your customer. But certainly digital is where we've been leaning in, and we've seen some actually pretty solid results around conversions, and people are still out there and they're definitely spending more time online. And they definitely are still interested in things. Like certain industries have slowed down for sure, but some of our key industries, it's been surprising. Like it's exceeded the client and our expectations, which is always nice.
Yeah, And so if you're like for marketing freelancers that are looking for work, things have slowed down, is there any advice or like how do they approach getting new business, and what are kind of their biggest I guess needs right now?
From strictly, you're talking about people that are working in a freelance environment that maybe are new to freelancing in terms of they don't have
Yeah.
established networks. That's a $1 million question. At least a couple $100,000 question. Anyways, tapping into your network, understanding what you
Hmm.
do, and be very, very clear on the value that you provide. Getting out there, doing things like this, like really experimenting. And I think I have seen a huge burst in people doing podcasts, for example. Like
Hmm.
everybody's jumping in on that platform, which is great. Give it a try. See how it appeals to you, because you're always going to get that friends and family kind of lift. And it's amazing how I find when
Yeah.
you put a piece of content out, or you do a Facebook Live event or Instagram Live or whatever the case may be, oftentimes it's not necessarily you're going to get exposed to a whole new group of people, but the people that know you might all of a sudden look at you in a slightly different light. And I think that's a real
Hmm.
important opportunity
Interesting.
of them going, oh,
Okay.
wow. Oh yeah, I've known you for years, and like I didn't actually know you did
Yeah.
that. Or like, oh well, I already trust you, but wow, you have this value. I didn't know that. So
Hmm.
don't ever overlook. I do this graph and I do this diagram, and you put your brand in the center. This is usually larger companies. You put your brand in the center, and they usually try to jump to this outside circle of the people that don't know you, that have never hired you. But don't forget, you
Hmm.
usually jump over your employees, your vendors, the people that you have worked with before,
Right.
the people that know you that haven't worked with you yet, but they don't even know why. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe they just don't know what you do or how it's relevant to them. Then there's that
Hmm.
outside circle, which is often the most expensive, but we chase it the hardest.
Yeah.
As someone with a smaller network, we all know, like I forget the Facebook's back from years ago, but we all have a couple hundred people in our network. It's amazing how much lift you can get by just putting yourself out there to that group in a way that makes them go, oh, I didn't know Matt did that. I didn't know Tyler had a podcast. Oh, I kind of like that guy, Hope. Maybe I'll go check out his podcast. Like, don't overlook that. It sounds very old school, but
Yeah.
when you're starting off as a freelancer, it can be really challenging because when you got your head down, ass up doing the work, you're not doing biz dev.
Hmm.
You're doing biz dev, you're not doing the work. But tapping into your network and letting people really understand and be clear what it is you do, they might hire you,
Hmm.
but they might know someone else who needs you. And that's, let's be honest, word of mouth and that personal referral, it's still gold. There's no question about it.
Yeah. Your friends and family are like little evangelists that,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. And it's an adage my business partner, Chad, says all the time. People are going to talk about you, give them the words. So put it out there
Yeah.
and say,
Huh.
oh, Matt does this. Oh, I know. Hey, I'm looking for an accountant. I'm looking for some bookkeeping. I've got a small corporation, 2 to 3 people. Oh, hey, you know who I know? Got to talk to the guys at True North Accounting. They are this, and they focus on this, and all of a sudden they start telling your story for them. If you don't
Yeah.
give them the words
Yeah.
and make it easy for them, they'll make up their own, which might not be wrong, but it's really important
Yeah.
to kind of facilitate the story. Make it easy to share.
I know. I always feel bad because we are pretty targeted on who we serve
Mm-hmm.
at True North, and we'll get like really good people that got referred by like friends or family or other customers, but they just we we're not set up to help them, and then we have to send that like really hot lead to our buddies that run a different accounting firm, or
Mm-hmm.
the guy in Okotoks that's down the street from us. And so we're turning down a lot of really good leads just because we've kind of focused on these freelancers, contractors,
Yep.
consultants.
I'm curious, and this is
But
maybe I'm going off the left field on this question. Do they ever send you leads that are in reverse that are the perfect leads for you guys?
yeah, yeah, first like
Then
do our
then, then it's working.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I never even thought about that kind of lift from trying this Instagram live. I was just thinking, oh, maybe our clients will tune in and we'll give them something interesting to talk about or to listen to. But
Never
yeah,
underestimate the value of validation for an existing client who's already chose you. All of a sudden
hmm
now I'm a customer for you. I've been maybe a few months. I've signed up, but I haven't really gone through a year-end cycle with you. All of a sudden I see you doing these things. I'm like, oh, you know what? I chose the right company. Like, that
yeah,
post-purchase bias that can happen. I don't know about you, but I get buyer's remorse sometimes. As I'm getting older, I'm
yeah,
getting better at it. I get buyer's remorse before I buy something, and then once I buy it, I'm
yeah,
good. My wife
yeah,
always laughs. She's like, when's the buyer's remorse phase going to happen, Tyler, with this new thing you bought or whatever? That post-purchase validation of seeing the person you hired or the person that
right,
you have trusted but maybe hasn't completely earned your trust yet, seeing them doing something where they're positioning themselves as an expert or adding value to their community, to me, that is never undervalue how much that like proof point goes like, I made the right choice. And then they tell 3 people, like, it's sometimes you're just validating someone else's, the purchase they've already made, and don't underestimate the value of that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And getting on that validation, like that, like value add fairly quickly after you sign the contract or land that client.
When you bought it or you made the purchase, and you're like, I don't know if that's right, because trust is earned, and in a sales environment, especially with professional services, you kind of buying this invisible thing that's surrounded with trust, but you haven't got the service yet. I see you doing things in the community. I see you doing things that align with stuff that I value. Boom, you instantly like, I feel validated with my purchase, and I tell 10 people about you, and I haven't even really worked with you yet. Like, it's amazing psychology, or maybe that's just how I operate, to be clear.
Yeah. So for some of these people that are skilled, they have something to offer to the community in Calgary, and they're just not sure how to get out there. Do they need to start a company? Do they need to, or can they just like start networking and try to dig up business, and then if they land something, then they can think about the structure?
That's an interesting question. Chicken, egg, cart, horse. How do you answer that? Be very careful with the word networking, because I think that's almost has a negative connotation for a lot of people. Some people love it. Some people are very social and they get out there. The introverts in the room just went like, oh no, did he say networking? I don't want to do that. It's uncomfortable. I don't, that's not something, not picking on the introverts by any means. I'm an extrovert, but networking is not my thing. Tap it, go where it's safe. My first 3 podcast guests were all people that I knew really well, and I felt really safe interviewing them. Reduce the barrier to entry, reduce your risk profile. I'm going to go show up at a networking event where I don't know anybody. Obviously, that's not today. I'm going to go walk around with business cards. Most people, I would say, broad statement, don't love that. Tap into your existing totally, exactly. Tap into your existing network and find a way to even ask for feedback. Like, that's such an easy tactic. Like, hey, Matt, I'm thinking of like starting my own business, or I'm not working, I'm doing this. This is what I kind of do. You're someone who does something. Give me your feedback. Like, do not be shy to reach out. Don't be protective of your idea. It's not a sacred cow, but go to people that you trust, but also that are safer for you. And that is so, like, again, we run to that outside circle and we go to this because like, that's what we're supposed to do. Be so careful with that. Start where you're comfortable, get honest feedback. And I'll be honest, get started. Put one foot in front of the other, do something that's relevant to you. I was talking to a professional B2B sales guy the other day. I'm going to have him on the podcast to talk about business development and B2B post. And he was ranting a little bit. We had a good chat about, he goes, you read a sales book and you read about some tactic. And then you go, and that sales book is like, that's the tactic to end all tactics. But what it doesn't say is that tactic was really relevant to that person's personality, that person's experiences, that person's way of being. It's all just ideas until you find what's relevant for you. And I know we want the secret pill. We want the magic weight loss pill. We want the magic get rich quick pill. I want the magic biz dev and networking pill. You do have to find what is your own formula. And that can be like, it's challenging, but other people's ideas are just that. They're ideas. You still have to make it credible for you. Find your way, find your secret sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you're selling a service or like an expertise, what is there a social channel that you prefer over another? Like, like for marketing freelancers, is it Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter? Or
it's a really good question. I think there is well, I'm going to give you the marketing answer. Where's your audience? Is your audience on Instagram? Is your audience on LinkedIn? Is your audience on Facebook? Is your audience on Twitter? Is your audience on TikTok? Pick a platform. I think that's the first question. Is that where has that changed in the last 2 months? Like, are we all here, like in our houses, kind of tuning in to whatever's out there once you've gone through Ozark and you've gone through your other list of shows? Oh my God, I just watched the last show last night of Ozarks. Anyways, I'm a huge fan of that show. Thanks for bringing it up. Jason, amazing. That show was incredible. If you haven't watched it, please go watch Ozarks. It blows my mind. The character arcs in that show just like melt my brain. I love it so much. It's interesting. I don't have the stats. I can't sit here and say, oh, Instagram has risen this much and LinkedIn has risen this much. I've seen podcast content consumption go down because people are not in their car. They're not commuting. That's interesting.
Right.
We had our biggest download month, I think, in the history of the podcast in April, but we also put out the most podcasts. So the listenership per episode didn't change. We just put out more
Yeah.
episodes, so it boosted it.
Right. Yeah.
I personally am a fan of LinkedIn. I get a really good engagement there. Our audience is there. It works for me. I love Instagram, but again, does what you do lend really well to a visual medium? You know, if you're an architect or you're
accounting
a designer,
firm, we're here doing it.
you guys,
This is
accounting
probably
is,
like
you know what, you guys are making accounting
boring.
sexy, so that's different. You guys are breaking the mold. That's okay. I think that fundamentally, are you adding value in some way? Is your value like beauty? Are you beautifying things and you're going to use Instagram as a great medium for that? Are you providing information? I'm a huge fan of, I love Medium. I love LinkedIn. I think Twitter is not my favorite. I think it works for some people. It's not my bag. Facebook, not really my bag. But it doesn't mean that that's not right for somebody. I'm giving you my personal biases as well as a marketer. And also, if you, like, for example, my business partner, he is on social media extensively, has a huge following on Facebook, loves to be on Facebook. It works for him. He puts content out there, gets great results. I post something on Facebook, I don't get any results. Well, it's because I'm not doing anything on there. I'm not engaged. I'm not active on the channel. I also think if you're a sole proprietor, you also have to think of what is it you're actually going to do. You know, back when I worked in the fitness days, everyone used to ask, what's the best exercise? The best exercise is the one that you do. So if you're going to be, you know, and it's maybe not as cut and dried as that, if you're on a platform that's completely irrelevant to your audience, but you really love it, you still have to look at that objectively. But if you think LinkedIn is the best for you, but you're not going to do it, it doesn't matter. You're not going to do it anyways. Mm-hmm. Once you get in a position where you can hire somebody or, you know, bring someone to support you, you can start to branch out a little bit. But I think that you've got to pick something that's going to be relevant, because social media, it takes 5 minutes to learn. It takes a lifetime to master. Like, if you're not going to be consistent with it, it can actually make you look like, you know, again, clear motive. We dropped the ball on our social media for a while. Like, I think there was a time that our last post was 6 months old. Like, we just weren't being disciplined about it. And then we had to make the decisions to cut back on some of our channels. We were, you know, shoemakers' kids. We were tending our clients' shoes, but our own shoes had holes in them. So, oh my God, but we need to be on all these channels. No, we don't. We know, you know, and that's a, you know, the discipline of most entrepreneurs is saying no versus saying yes to everything.
Definitely.
Sorry, that was a bit of a rant. That was a bit of a rant I went on there.
Yeah, no, you mentioned Medium. That's like my main, I guess, content like channel has been blogging the last 2 years, like blogs and newsletters. And I've never really I haven't looked into Medium too much, but how do you use Medium? And
years ago, honestly, years ago, I went into Medium. They said, what are your interests? I clicked on a bunch of boxes. I have no idea what they are now. I don't remember. I'm sure I should go back in and fine tune it. But the way I find the platform is very engaging. Like, the user experience is really works for me. I love it. It's clean, it's professional, it's sharp. Spacing is good. Like, the way it lays out is easy to consume. I find that I found some really good content on Medium. Yeah, it's just one of them. There's a million of them out there. Like, what works for you and what's going to be a place they're like, I'm going to pick this, I'm going to publish it there, and I'm going to use and distribute that, because it's kind of published. You publish somewhere, and then you got to go lay out the breadcrumbs, right, for everybody to find it. Because if you put it on Medium and they'll tell any about it, no one will know it's there. Go out there and like think about it. So I don't have any other deeper insights than that. It's just I'm being very personal with, like, I've used it, I enjoy it. It's just one of the platforms you can choose.
Yeah, good. Well, so Calgary's they were going through turmoil, like our whole industry here. We're getting hit by low oil and gas prices, no pipelines, our canola and our beef are kind of under attack, and then COVID. I guess this was one of the main questions. What do we do, like, from here? How can or what can small businesses do to support each other?
Such a massive question, Matt. And I will not proclaim to have this answer. In the context of small business, I am very, very bullish on Calgary. I'm incredibly positive on Calgary. And at the same time, I think that the road ahead is going to be tough. Like, I think that there's a very strong reality here. There's not going to be a bounce back. The numbers that are being projected from an unemployment perspective are incredibly real. You know, the multiple black swan, the multiple black eyes, like you said, how many different punches in the face can we get here? And like, I've had a couple guests on, so I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna quote some of my guests. It's like, well, you know what? We've been back on our heels for 5 years already. There's no one who's going to be more ready to come out of this thing than Calgary, because we were already doing the transformation work anyways. I'm like, okay, It's nice and broad. Having a conversation. I had a conversation last week. I haven't aired it yet. It'll be aired in a couple of weeks on collisions with Mary Moran from Calgary Economic Development.
Oh yeah.
And I said, Mary, what's on your dashboard? She says, Tyler, what's on my dashboard is we need a pipeline. We absolutely need a pipeline. We need other sectors, and we're not getting into an interesting debate around technology not being a sector but being a movement. As Alberta diversifies and technology starts to underpin more and more of our industries. And I'm
even oil and gas. There's huge data plays in oil and gas, but yeah.
Yeah, I've had amazing guests on the show that talk about how just the technology, the accessibility, the openness for efficiencies, the willingness to go, hey, how do we make it better? Let's use technology. Absolutely, we are an energy-based province. That is not going away anytime soon. I don't believe that the industry is going away. I don't believe it's going to be shut down tomorrow. I absolutely don't believe in that. Yeah. I believe it is changing, and I believe the need for efficiency and technology. The way forward for Alberta, like we've got a serious challenge with commercial real estate downtown. Mary said something to me that really kind of blew me away. She said, Tyler, we have enough like per capita commercial real estate to accommodate a city of 4 million people. And that blew me away. That blew me away.
So much of that has come online in the last 5 years when companies are moving down to Houston, Denver.
And let's talk about distributed work. Twitter announced today that they are not going to be forcing any of their employees to come back to the office. That's just one company. Like we have completely looked at our workforce and going, we have 2 office spaces. I've committed to leases in Calgary and Toronto, but we've reworked our business model to be based on a business model that's 100% structured around a distributed workforce and a work from home model. The office is going to be kind of like a weird perk off to the side, but how we survive and how we operate is going to be based on people in Toronto can work on clients in Calgary. It's going to be about who creates the most value, not where your desk is. So that's an interesting opportunity, because before we talked about it, but clients weren't really on board. Some were, some weren't. Our team was on, our team wasn't. Just thinking about that and how that's going to diversify Calgary, a weird idea. People can work anywhere in the world. Why wouldn't they want to live in Calgary?
I personally think Calgary is an amazing city to live in, and
I love it.
Like we're still growing, and we still have it's affordable. There's a good scene here. I'd invite anybody to move back because there is still lots of opportunity here, even though it might not seem that way. Oil and gas it's not going anywhere. We have lots of it's not going to play as big of a role as we grow, and it kind of stagnates. But yeah, there's lots of room for creative people and new industries to pop up. So it'll be fun to watch. Like I think there's going to be who knows what's going to happen, but I think there's going to be some new industries coming up, and
there absolutely is the diversity that I'm seeing happening in the city. I think that Calgary oil and gas has provided so much value in the city. And globally, we need to live in a world of energy abundance, not energy scarcity. And I think that there's a lot of parts of the world that, we're very spoiled here. The quality of life here is fantastic, and oil and gas has facilitated so much of the quality of life. I think it's very, very easy to take it for granted.
I guess we'll give a quick shout out to Fort Mac. They've been through some.
Oh God! Shit. Speaking of how many times can you get punched? Okay, Uncle, I give up. I know it's interesting what this province has grown. The amount of resiliency here and the diversification that is happening, whether it is AI and machine learning, whether it's what's happening. See a huge shout out to Creative Destruction Labs, Calgary Economic Development Platform, Startup Calgary. There is fantastic organizations here, and I've had the honor to talk to many of the people that are running these organizations. The diversity that's happening in our city, and we don't hear about it a lot. There's a lot of pockets. Technology is absolutely an underpinning. Agriculture, transportation, and logistics. The things that are going on here that, like you said, are oil and gas will play a part. It maybe will not be the sole player at the table. There's all these other industries coming in around it. I still think we've got a lot of hubs and spokes. If you think of oil and gas was the hub, and all these spokes that contributed to oil and gas, that's still happening. But you're starting to get what about big data, and what about that? What about robotics? There's a lot of interesting things here. Alberta IoT, Internet of Things. I had Brenda Beckendorf, who's the managing director of Alberta IoT. 120 companies in Alberta, small, medium, large, all focusing on the Internet of Things, from the smallest sensor in your home to the most complex oil and gas installation and the monitoring that's happening. there are so many things here that I think are being spurred based on the knowledge, the know-how. Man, we have a really smart group of people here. Like, it's actually ridiculous how many people here are highly educated and that are maybe in a little bit of a, I think, a chasm of like, where do I go next? But that's the good thing about smart people. They're always smart no matter where they go.
Yeah, I just saw my buddy Tyler joined, and he's a Grand Prairie, like, drilling services, TOS, tubular optimization. But he's tried so many interesting things to, like, during this downturn. Like, business is still going, but yeah, he's got 3 or 4 other businesses all kind of pitching in with some cash flow.
That's like the pioneering nature of our province and the entrepreneurial nature. And there's so many things we have going for us that make me very, very optimistic. And like, you know, I didn't grow up here, but I'm a Calgarian now, and I'm very, very proud to say that. And I will fight for the city till the end of time, to the end of days, because like there's no place better to live. Like it's absolutely fantastic. I will be glowingly bullish on the city for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate like that conversation. We don't want to keep people too late. So I just want to let you know about, we have a swag bag. It's like a digital swag bag.
Oh,
and
nice.
we've got a playlist in there, like a Spotify playlist that we put together. And one of the songs on there is, I don't know if anybody knows Tim Huss, but he's got a song called One More Oil Boom Before I Die. It's unreal.
I always joke. I'm too young to say remember the good old days in Alberta. I refuse to say that. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we all got to just move on and do our best. But if that oil boom comes, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but it would be great. Anyways, I thought it was a funny song to add to that list.
You know what? I'm gonna counter that a little bit. Yes, we need access to markets. Yes, we need oil and gas to give us maybe another push. But at the same time, like I love that this downturn that we've been dealing with, or structural change in oil and gas, has forced some of this change. And necessity is the mother of all invention. And I had a weird sensation the other day when the government released its plan for, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, geez. Have I made all the changes I need to make in my life or my business before this like sense of urgency runs out? And that's a weird kind of paradigm. But I do believe that, we will come out of this. But the fact that we've been forced to really look at change and to look at innovation and true diversification has been Calgary's mandate since 1980. I think if you talk to Platform Calgary, its original iteration was in 1981. And if you read their mission statement, it's the same today. So the fact that now we've been given, quote unquote, no choice, I'm very optimistic on that, because when backed into a corner, I believe Calgarians will come out swinging, and there is pockets of innovation in this all over this city that are going to take us forward. So yes, I want another oil boom, but I think we, maybe not too soon. And I'm going to probably get some hate mail for saying what I just said, but I think that this necessity of what's driving us forward, let's not waste a good crisis.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Hey, good point. Okay, well. Really appreciate you joining us, all of us, and everybody that did tune in. I think we're going to wrap it up, but check out, there's a landing page that we'll post right after this, and there's a promo code Citizen2020 to give you a discount on some Citizen.
Delicious beer. I might go have another one after this episode, maybe. Matt, thank you so much for having me on. That was a ton of fun, man. I see more Instagram lives in my future, maybe if anyone invites me on.
Yeah, this is a good format. Like I don't know if there's any questions in the feed, but you can always post them to Instagram after this, and if you have anything specific to add. But yeah, thank you everybody. Appreciate it.
And hey, I'll add it to that. If anybody wants to reach out, like check me out on Instagram, Tyler YYC, Tyler Chisolm YYC, or Tyler at clearmotive.ca. I'm happy to answer questions. I love chatting with people. It's one of my favorite things to do. And check out both podcasts. And if there's anything interesting or you want to hear, do not hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, I really like there's Village Ice Cream. There's like some of the brands in Calgary that you've had great conversations with, and those are cool stories to listen to. It's a great podcast. It's
always good to hear the story behind the story that you thought you knew.
Yeah, Mike Morrison was a good one. Yeah,
yes, Mike is. I'm actually on a I think it's next week with Patak & Co., who does my social media. We're going to do a panel discussion. I'm going to be on there with Mike, where we're going to talk about what's going on in Alberta and COVID. And so check that out. That's going to be advertised through Instagram as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward because Mike's great and not scared to share his opinions. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, he sure isn't. Okay, perfect. Well,
Awesome.
thanks
Thanks a lot,
everybody.
Matt.
Have a
It's my
great long
pleasure.
weekend.